So, a couple of weeks before the lockdown was announced and everything got shut down for however long it's going to be shut down for, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to see Harry Baker performing at the Darlington Forum. And it was an absolutely brilliant night, and I'm really glad that I was able to get in there just before everything shut because Harry Baker is a world champion slam poet. And slam poetry is one of the best forms of poetry to see live. It's basically a competitive form of spoken word poems. And even though it's not always competitive, that night wasn't, it is often delivered in such a way as to really kind of win the audience over almost. Harry Baker uses a lot of puns, he uses a lot of humour to try and get his audience almost interacting with the show. And it's a very audience focused genre, which is why it feels a little bit weird to have written one uh, in an absence of an audience, in an absence of audiences generally. But Harry Baker has recently uploaded to his YouTube channel a lockdown poem from lockdown, so I feel like if he can do it, I can at least give it a go. So I've written, inspired by recent events, a slam poem, fairly short one. It's a little bit political. The title is We Can't Breathe, which I feel like gives a little bit of an indication as to what the poem concerns. And it goes like this. And all the air, all the oxygen, along with a fair share of nitrogen, argon, carbon dioxide, and tiny dots of dusty blobs are in my body. And now I stop to think about what it was that got them in, that common and subconscious thing we're all always doing, drawing breath. It gets a lot more interesting. While I respire, I find a site online to inquire about the diaphragm and why I require one to stay alive. Some kind guy provides me with a diagram so I can see easily how the diaphragm contracts and relaxes, and the practice of me breathing relies on the vacuum that this action creates. The lungs only function when the diaphragm moves out their way and makes space for them. And once that empty place is available, our stretchy, rescalable respiratory organs will swell in the welcoming zone of no pressure we've so helpfully held open for them. And while I'm questioning respiration, desperately questing for information, I get some pestering inclination that the facts of inhalation have vaster implications than simple physical description. The epiphany hits me that I'm privileged to breathe without difficulty, without limiting disability or inhibiting proximity to restricting third parties, and this is giving me the ability to speak my ideas, my poetry freely. Because the voice, which is our only choice if we want to communicate and ruminate and interact, can only start to speak if the lungs have done their part and breathed in. And in fact, to go back, we know that's only viable when the diaphragm contracts. Fortunately for me, I'm supported by a system that listens to my needs. My diaphragm always opens a space for me to breathe freely without needlessly impeding me. But unfortunately, I'm currently lucky and more of a minority than I'd like to be. There are those whose voices aren't invited to be vocal. Whether the issue is highly local and to do with the tissue of the lungs, full of destructive cells that seemingly exist just to obstruct help, or there's been restrictive imposition from a political system that places limitations on the citizens of its nation to the extent of preventing the operation of their internal systems of circulation and respiration, causing devastation in their mission for justice and social stabilization. So, like the diaphragm, it stands to reason that we should relax our reactionary stances so the air can start leaving the lungs of those whose voices need to be given a hearing. And last but not least, the action of the last few weeks added to the catastrophic damage captured in statistics of tens of thousands of families losing their granddads, mothers, brothers, fathers, sons and daughters to a drastically mishandled invisible enemy has proven visibly that we should be listening even more carefully to those who are telling us we can't breathe. Deep breath. So that was We Can't Breathe. And if you would like to see more slam poetry, I will link a few Harry Bakers. I'd recommend he's the place to start. He's a bit more mainstream with it. And I'll link a few extras from other places as well. And if you'd like to support Black Lives Matter, which obviously I think you should, I'll link a few petitions to sign fighting racism in police and the justice system in general. And yeah, I think that's the end of the video. So hopefully I've added something useful to the discourse as a white male, rather than just adding like white noise, if you will. Yeah, subscribe to Speaking Volumes to hear more volumes being spoken in the future. I think the next video is George Orwell in the Spanish Civil War.